Admiral Jae-sung stood in the command center of Earth's main fleet base, watching the stars through the massive window. At 62 years old, he had seen many battles, but nothing had prepared him for the message that arrived that morning. The communication officer ran toward him, her face pale with fear. "Sir, we just lost contact with Kepler Station." The last transmission was cut off during what sounded like an attack. Jae-sung felt his heart sink. Kepler Station was humanity's first joint colony with an alien race. The Villani had become their closest friends over 15 years of working together. These crystal-like beings were peaceful and kind, sharing their amazing technology with humans while learning about human culture in return. "Send Captain Bora's ship immediately," Jae-sung ordered. "The Soul's Pride is our fastest vessel. Tell her to take a full marine unit." Captain Bora received the orders while her ship was patrolling near the outer colonies. She was only 31 years old, but had proven herself as one of humanity's best starship commanders. The moment she heard about Kepler Station, she ordered her crew to jump to maximum speed. The journey took 18 hours. During that time, Bora tried to contact Kepler Station again and again, but only silence came back. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Sung-woo, kept trying different frequencies, hoping to hear something, anything, that would tell them their friends were safe. When they finally arrived at Kepler Station, Bora stared at her screens in horror. The beautiful space station that had been a symbol of peace and cooperation was now twisted metal floating in space. Pieces of the station drifted everywhere, along with the bodies of both humans and Villani. "Take us closer," Bora whispered to her pilot. The Soul's Pride moved carefully through the debris field. What they saw made the crew sick with anger and sadness. The Villani crystal gardens, which had taken decades to grow and were more beautiful than anything humans had ever created, were completely destroyed. The bioluminescent cities that glowed like jewels were now just broken pieces of crystal scattered through space. Commander Min-ho, who led the Marine unit, stood beside Bora on the bridge. His hands shook as he looked at the destruction. His 8-year-old daughter Ji-young had been living on Kepler Station, learning the Villani crystal song art from alien children who had become her best friends. "Sir," the sensors officer called out, "I'm detecting a small emergency pod. It's badly damaged but still has life support." They brought the pod aboard quickly. Inside was Dr. Hai-jin, a human scientist who studied Villani biology. She was hurt badly with burns covering half her body, but she was alive and conscious. "Who did this?" Bora asked as the medical team worked on Hai-jin. "The Skarn," Hai-jin said through her pain. "Huge reptile creatures in black ships. They didn't try to talk or negotiate. They just started shooting everything. The Villani tried to surrender, but the Skarn killed them anyway, even the children." Min-ho turned away, his worst fears confirmed. His daughter was gone. Hai-jin continued talking, her voice getting weaker. "They left something behind. A message crystal. It's in my pod's storage compartment. They wanted us to find it." Bora retrieved the crystal and connected it to the ship's computers. A holographic image appeared showing a massive reptilian creature covered in scales and battle scars. Its eyes were cold and filled with hate. "Weak species that make friends with other weak species deserve to die together," the creature said in a harsh voice. "This is your warning, humans. Stay in your own space or we will destroy you like we destroyed your crystal friends. We are the hegemony of Skarn, and we rule this galaxy through strength, not friendship." The message ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Captain Bora felt anger burning in her chest. She had visited Kepler Station many times and had seen human children playing with young Villani, learning from each other and creating beautiful art together. The Villani had shared their most precious gifts with humanity, including their crystal technology that helped human ships travel faster between stars. "Ma'am?" Sung-woo said quietly. "Should I send a message to Admiral Jae-sung?" "Yes," Bora replied. "Tell him we need to recover all the bodies we can find, both human and Villani. They deserve proper burials." The next few hours were the hardest of Bora's life. Her crew worked in spacesuits, carefully collecting the bodies of their friends and allies. They found Min-ho's daughter Ji-young floating near what had been the Villani Children's Learning Center. She was still holding a small crystal that her Villani friend had given her, a gift that would sing beautiful songs when touched. Dr. Hai-jin, despite her injuries, helped identify the Villani bodies. She knew many of them personally, and spoke their names with respect as they were brought aboard. The Volani elder Thalcine was found near the station's center, his ancient crystal body shattered but his face peaceful. When they finished the recovery operation, Bora gathered her crew on the main deck. Space military rules said she should give a formal speech, but she couldn't find the right words. Instead, she simply said, "These people trusted us. They shared their homes, their knowledge, and their lives with us. And now they're dead because someone decided that friendship makes you weak." Commander Minho, holding his daughter's belongings, spoke for everyone when he said, "What are we going to do about it?" Bora looked at the boxes containing the bodies of their friends, then at the message crystal from their enemies. "We're going to take them home. We're going to tell everyone what happened here, and then we're going to make sure this never happens again." The Soul's Pride left Kepler Station's remains behind and started the long journey back to Earth. But something had changed. The crew was no longer just space explorers or military officers. They had become witnesses to murder, and they carried with them proof that somewhere in the galaxy, there were creatures who killed innocent people just because they dared to be kind to others. As Earth grew larger on their screens, Bora knew that everything was about to change. Humanity had just learned that the galaxy was more dangerous than they had ever imagined. But they had also learned something else. They were not going to let their friends' deaths mean nothing. The war between humanity and the Skarn had begun, even though only one side knew it yet. 3 months after the destruction of Kepler Station, Admiral Jae Sung stood before the Earth Defense Council in a room filled with angry voices. Politicians argued with military leaders while news reporters waited outside, demanding answers that nobody seemed to have. "The Galactic Council has made their decision," President Kyung-ho announced to the room. "They will not take action against the Skarn hegemony. They claim this was a territorial dispute, not unprovoked murder." General Changmin slammed his fist on the table. "Territorial dispute? They killed children. They destroyed an entire peaceful colony. The other alien species are scared," President Kyung-ho continued. "Many of them have stopped trading with us. They don't want the Skarn to think they're taking our side." Admiral Jae Sung had expected this response, but it still made him furious. In 3 months, humanity had learned that having friends in space meant nothing if those friends wouldn't help when you needed them most. "Sir," Captain Dongwu said from his seat near the back of the room, "my ship has been tracking Skarn fleet movements. They're not done with the Volani. They're hunting down the survivors." This was the news Jae Sung had been dreading. Captain Dongwu commanded the Busan Runner, a small stealth ship that could spy on enemy movements without being detected. For weeks, he had been following Skarn vessels across the galaxy. "Tell us what you found," Jae Sung ordered. Dongwu activated a holographic display showing star maps with red dots marking Skarn positions. The Skarn are systematically searching every world where Volani refugees might be hiding. They've hit 4 colonies in the past month. They're taking prisoners instead of just killing everyone. Dr. Haye Jin, who was still recovering from her injuries but refused to stay in the hospital, spoke up from her wheelchair. "The Volani I've talked to say the Skarn are selling their people as slaves to other species. Some are being used for medical experiments because Volani crystal biology is so different from other life forms." The room fell silent. Everyone knew this meant the surviving Volani were suffering fates worse than death. "There's something else," Dongwu continued. "My sensors officer detected strange energy readings near the destroyed colonies. The Skarn are taking Volani crystal technology back to their own worlds." Sunmi, a brilliant young engineer who had worked closely with Volani scientists before the attack, stood up quickly. "They're trying to steal our friends' most sacred knowledge. The crystal technology isn't just tools to the Volani. It's part of their culture, their religion, their entire way of life. Admiral Jae Sung made a decision that would change everything. Captain Dongwu, I want you to find the largest group of Volani survivors you can. We're going to rescue them." "Sir," President Kyung-ho interrupted, "the Galactic Council has ordered us not to take military action against the Skarn. If we attack them, we could start a war that humanity cannot win." "The war already started," Jae Sung replied coldly. "The Skarn started it when they murdered our allies. The only question now is whether we're going to fight back or let them finish what they began." 2 weeks later, Captain Dongwu's stealth ship found what they were looking for. On a remote planet called Zerion, the Skarn had built a prison camp holding over 300 Volani survivors. The conditions were horrible. The crystal-based aliens were kept in metal cages under harsh lights that burned their sensitive skin. But Dongwu also discovered something unexpected. Hidden in the camp was Tal Naran, one of the few remaining Villani elders. Despite being a prisoner, he had secretly been teaching young Villani how to hide small pieces of crystal technology in their bodies. The Old One wants to meet with humans, Dongwu reported back to Earth. He says the Villani have secrets that could help us fight the Skarn. Admiral Jae Sung made another dangerous decision. He ordered Sunmi to take a small team of engineers to the planet using captured Skarn transport ships. They would pretend to be traders selling supplies to the prison camp. The mission was incredibly risky, but it worked. Sunmi and her team managed to speak with Thalnaran for 20 minutes while Skarn guards were distracted. What the Valani elder told them changed everything. "For 1,000 years my people have been peaceful," Thalnaran explained in his musical voice. "But we were not always this way. Long ago, the Villani fought terrible wars using crystal weapons that could destroy entire star systems. We hid these weapons and promised never to use them again." Sunmi could barely believe what she was hearing. "You're telling us the Villani have weapons powerful enough to fight the Skarn?" "More than fight them," Thalnaran replied sadly. "These weapons could destroy them completely. But my people chose peace instead of power. Now with most of us dead or captured, perhaps it is time to remember the old ways." The elder gave Sunmi the location of 3 hidden Villani weapon caches scattered across the galaxy. He also taught her how to modify human technology using Villani crystal principles, making their ships faster and their weapons more powerful. "But remember," Thalnaran warned, "these weapons were hidden because they are too dangerous. They do not just destroy ships or buildings. They burn with the fire of stars themselves." When Sunmi returned to Earth with this information, the entire human military leadership had to make a choice. They could try to negotiate with the Skarn and hope for mercy, or they could take the Villani weapons and fight back against an enemy that had already shown they would never stop killing. The decision was made. Easier when Captain Bora brought terrible news from another rescue mission. She had found a Skarn research facility where Villani children were being dissected alive, so Skarn scientists could study their crystal biology. The recording she brought back made even the most peaceful politicians demand immediate action. Admiral Jae Sung called a secret meeting with his most trusted officers. "We're going to get those weapons," he announced. "We're going to modify our ships and train our crews, and then we're going to show the Skarn what happens when you murder the friends of humanity." Captain Wu Jin, who commanded one of humanity's largest battleships, raised a concern. "Sir, if we do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will see us as a warlike species." "Let them," Jae Sung replied. "I'd rather have the galaxy fear us and leave us alone than have them think we're weak and decide to attack us next." Over the following weeks, human engineers worked day and night to understand Villani crystal technology. They discovered that the crystals could store enormous amounts of energy and focus it into beams that could cut through any known material. More importantly, the crystals could be grown and shaped, meaning humanity could build weapons that matched their own fighting styles. Sunmi led the development of new ship designs that combined human military tactics with Villani energy weapons. The results were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships were already faster and more maneuverable than most alien vessels. Now they would also be more deadly. As the secret preparations continued, Captain Dongwu kept tracking Skarn movements. He discovered that the enemy was planning something big. They were gathering their largest fleets near the center of their territory, possibly preparing to attack human worlds directly. "They think they've scared us into surrender," Admiral Jae Sung said when he heard this news. "They have no idea what's coming. The time for hiding and planning was almost over. Soon humanity would carry the fire of ancient Villani weapons to the stars, and the Skarn would learn that some species become more dangerous when you hurt the people they care about." 6 months after the massacre at Kepler Station, Captain Wu Jin stood on the bridge of his battleship, the Inchen's Wrath, watching the target planet grow larger on his screens. Gorvak was a Skarn prison world, where they kept hundreds of Villani survivors in conditions so terrible that many prisoners died every day. "All ships report ready, sir," his communications officer announced. Around the Inchen's Wrath, 12 other human vessels waited in formation. Each ship had been secretly modified with Villani crystal technology over the past 3 months. Admiral Jae Sung's voice came over the communication system from his flagship. This is Operation Righteous Fury. Today we show the galaxy that humanity does not abandon its friends. Begin the attack. The Skarn defenders around Gorvak had no idea what was about to hit them. They had fought hundreds of battles against different alien species, and they always won the same way. Their massive ships would advance slowly, using thick armor and overwhelming firepower to crush any resistance. They expected the human ships to do what every other species did: stay far away and try to damage them with long-range weapons that barely scratched their armor. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship simply vanished. Captain Wu Jin watched his screens as the Vellani crystal drives activated for the first time in combat. The technology allowed ships to phase partially out of normal space, becoming invisible and able to pass through solid objects for short periods. Phasing complete, his pilot reported. We're directly above their main battle group. All ships, decloak and fire, Wu Jin ordered. 13 human vessels suddenly appeared in the middle of the Skarn formation, so close that their weapons could not miss. The Vellani crystal cannons fired for the first time in 1,000 years, sending beams of pure energy that cut through Skarn armor like hot knives through ice. The largest Skarn battleship, which had destroyed dozens of alien worlds, was cut in half by a single shot from the Ancient's wrath. Smaller Skarn vessels exploded as crystal beams passed through their hulls, melting everything they touched. In less than 5 minutes, the entire Skarn orbital defense fleet was destroyed. The surviving Skarn ships tried to retreat, but the human vessels were too fast. Captain Bora, now commanding the upgraded Soul's Pride, led a squadron that hunted down the fleeing enemies. No survivors, she ordered, remembering the bodies of Vellani children floating in space. They showed no mercy to innocents, so we show none to them. While the space battle raged overhead, General Chang Min prepared to land on the planet's surface. His marine units wore new armor that used Vellani crystal technology to make them stronger and faster. More importantly, the armor could protect them from the poisonous atmosphere that the Skarn used to weaken their prisoners. Remember, Chang Min told his troops as their landing ships descended, we're here to rescue the Vellani, not to destroy everything we see. But if any Skarn tries to hurt prisoners while we're here, kill them immediately. The prison camp on Gorvak was even worse than the human intelligence reports had suggested. Commander Minho, who had volunteered for the ground mission despite his grief over his daughter's death, led the first squad into the main prison building. What they found there made experienced soldiers sick with rage. The Skarn had not just been keeping Vellani as prisoners. They had been using them for medical experiments, trying to understand how crystal-based life forms worked. Many Vellani had pieces of their bodies removed while they were still alive. Others had been forced to grow crystal formations that were then harvested like crops. Medical Bay, northwest corner, Minho reported over his radio. We've got survivors, but they're in bad condition. Some of them have been modified. Dr. Haye Jin, who had insisted on joining the rescue mission despite still recovering from her own injuries, ran toward the medical bay with her emergency team. What she saw there would haunt her for the rest of her life. Vellani children, some barely old enough to form their first crystal growths, had been connected to machines that drained their natural energy. Adult Vellani had been cut open and studied like laboratory animals. The Skarn scientists hadn't even bothered to use proper medical techniques. They had simply been experimenting to see what would happen. How many are still alive? Haijin asked her medical team. Maybe 60 in this building, the lead medic replied. But ma'am, some of them have been hurt so badly that I don't know if we can help them. Among the survivors, they found Thal Naran, the elder who had given humanity the location of the Vellani weapon caches. He was barely conscious, but when he saw Haijin, he managed to smile. You came, he whispered in his musical voice, though now it was broken and painful to hear. I knew humans would not forget their friends. We're getting you out of here, Haijin promised, though she could see that many of his crystal formations had been damaged beyond repair. As the rescue operation continued, Captain Wu Jin received an urgent message from his communications officer. Sir, we're getting transmissions from across the galaxy. Multiple species are demanding to know what happened here. Some sound angry, but others sound impressed. This was exactly what Admiral Jae-sung had expected. When humanity demonstrated that they could defeat the supposedly invincible Skarn, the political balance of the entire galaxy would shift. But before anyone could celebrate, terrible news arrived. 3 Skarn fleets had attacked human colonies while the rescue fleet was at Gorvak. The colonies of New Busan, Daegu Prime, and Ulsan Station had been completely destroyed. Millions of humans were dead, and the Skarn had broadcast their own message across the galaxy. Humans who dare to attack the hegemony will see their homeworlds burn. The message said, "For every Skarn ship destroyed, we will kill 1,000 humans. This is the price of defying your superiors." Admiral Jae-sung felt his heart break as he read the casualty reports. The colonies that had been destroyed were home to families of many crew members serving in the rescue fleet. Commander Minho learned that his parents had been living on New Busan when it was attacked. "Sir," Captain Bora said quietly, "what are your orders?" Jae-sung looked at the rescued Villani being loaded onto medical ships, then at the reports of human colonies being destroyed. The Skarn had made their message clear. Any species that fought back would be punished with total destruction. "Send a message to every human ship in space," Jae-sung ordered. "Send it to every colony, every station, and every outpost. Tell them what the Skarn have done to our people and to the Villani. Tell them that we have 2 choices. Surrender and hope they kill us quickly, or fight and make sure that when we die, we take as many of them with us as possible." The rescue mission had been a success. 63 Villani survivors were now safe aboard human medical ships. The galaxy had seen that humanity could fight and win against the Skarn. But the war was far from over. Captain Wu Jin looked at the burning remains of the Skarn prison planet as his fleet prepared to leave. "Sir, the other alien species are going to be watching everything we do now." "Good," Admiral Jae-sung replied. "Let them watch. Let them see what happens when you murder the friends of humanity. And let them decide if they want to be our allies or our enemies, because after today, there won't be any middle ground." The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying the rescued Villani toward safety and leaving behind a clear message. The war between humanity and the Skarn had begun in earnest, and it would not end until one side was completely destroyed. The war had been raging for 8 months when Admiral Tae-wan received the message that would determine humanity's fate. His fleet of 47 ships was hiding in the asteroid field near Proxima Drift, waiting for the largest Skarn battle group ever assembled. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported. "Long-range sensors confirm it. Over 200 Skarn vessels are approaching our position. They have enough firepower to destroy every human colony in this sector." Tae-wan studied the tactical display with grim determination. At 55 years old, he had spent his entire career preparing for battles like this, but he had never faced odds this terrible. The Skarn fleet included their newest super dreadnoughts, massive ships that could destroy planets with their main weapons. "They're trying to end the war with one decisive battle," he said to his staff officers. "If we lose here, humanity loses everything." Captain Yun Young, who commanded a squadron of fast corvettes, stood near the tactical display. "Sir, our scouts report that the Skarn are flying in their traditional formation. They still think we'll try to fight them the way other species do. This was humanity's advantage. For centuries, alien species had fought space battles by forming large groups of ships and trading long-range shots until one side gave up. The Skarn had perfected this type of combat, using their superior armor and weapons to overwhelm any opposition. But humans had learned to fight differently. "All ships, this is Admiral Tae-wan," he broadcast to his fleet. "The Skarn think they know how we fight because they've been watching our battles for 8 months. Today we show them something new. Execute Plan Wildfire." Plan Wildfire was a battle strategy that only humans could use. It required ships to operate independently, making split-second decisions without waiting for orders from fleet command. Most alien species couldn't fight this way because their crews weren't trained to think for themselves. Commander Seok Ho, who led the fighter squadrons, launched first. His pilots had been training with new tactics that used the three-dimensional nature of space combat. Instead of approaching the enemy in orderly formations, they came from every direction at once, using asteroids and debris as cover. "Fox Squadron, attack Vector 77 Alpha," Seok Ho ordered. "Rabbit Squadron, hit them from below. Make them think we're everywhere at once." The Skarn fleet commander, Admiral Gorthak, watched the approaching human fighters with confusion. In every previous battle, alien fighters had attacked in straight lines that were easy to intercept. These human pilots were flying in random patterns that made no sense. "Destroy those insects," Gorthak ordered his gunners. But the Skarn weapons, designed to hit large ships, couldn't track the wildly maneuvering human fighters. While the fighters created chaos, Captain Yoon Young led her corvettes in the main attack. Using Volani phase technology, her ships appeared inside the Skarn formation, so close that the enemy's massive guns couldn't turn fast enough to target them. All corvettes fire at will, Yoon Young commanded. Target their weapon systems and engines. Make them unable to fight or run. The small human ships darted between the massive Skarn vessels like angry insects, their crystal weapons cutting through armor and destroying critical systems. The Skarn had never faced an enemy that could get so close to their ships. Admiral Gorthak realized too late that his formation was falling apart. All ships, break formation and engage independently, he ordered. But Skarn crews were not trained for individual combat. They depended on coordinated fleet actions and overwhelming firepower. The turning point came when Commander Jinwoo, now commanding the super dreadnought Gwangju's Vengeance, emerged from behind a large asteroid where his ship had been hiding. The Gwangju's Vengeance was humanity's first attempt at building a ship as large as the Skarn capital ships, but powered by Volani crystal technology. Target the Skarn flagship, Jinwoo ordered. Full power to forward crystal cannons. The Gwangju's Vengeance fired a beam of energy so bright that it could be seen from the other side of the star system. The shot passed completely through the Skarn flagship, melting everything in its path. Admiral Gorthak's ship broke in half and exploded. "This is Commander Jinwoo to all Skarn vessels," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Your admiral is dead. Your formation is destroyed. Surrender now, and we will allow you to retreat." The response came from the second largest Skarn ship. "We do not surrender to inferior species. We will destroy you all." Jinwoo looked at the tactical display showing dozens of burning human ships. Many good people had died in this battle, including friends he had served with for years. "Very well. You showed our allies no mercy at Kepler Station. We offer you the same courtesy." What followed was not a battle but a systematic destruction. Human ships hunted down fleeing Skarn vessels across 3 star systems, using their superior speed and maneuverability to prevent any escape. When the fighting finally ended 12 hours later, not a single Skarn ship remained operational. The victory at Proxima Drift changed everything. Admiral Taewan received messages from across the galaxy within hours of the battle's end. Some alien species demanded explanations for humanity's aggressive behavior, but others sent secret communications asking about possible alliances. The Altarian Collective was the first to make direct contact. Ambassador Veltarash, a bird-like creature with beautiful silver feathers, met with Admiral Jae-sung on a neutral space station. "We have been watching your war with great interest," Veltarash said in perfect human language. "The Skarn have threatened our worlds for decades, but we never had the strength to fight back. Now we see that they are not invincible." "What are you offering?" Jae-sung asked directly. "Intelligence, supply routes, safe havens for your ships when they need repairs." Veltarash leaned forward. "The Altarian people have no love for the Skarn, but we needed to see proof that someone could actually defeat them." This was exactly what humanity needed. The war was taking a terrible toll on human resources. Every victory came at the cost of ships and crew members that could not be easily replaced. But with alien allies providing support, the tide of war could finally turn in their favor. Captain Bo-Ra, now promoted to admiral, led a joint human-Altarian fleet to liberate the prison world of Korveth. The planet held thousands of alien slaves from dozens of different species, all captured by the Skarn over many years. When the rescued prisoners learned that humans had organized their liberation, many of them wept with gratitude. A young creature called Zixfen, whose species had been completely enslaved by the Skarn, knelt before Bo-Ra and spoke in broken human words. "Your people came for us when no one else would. We will remember this always." The liberation of Korveth had consequences that reached across the galaxy. Species that had been neutral in the war began to reconsider their positions. The Crystalline Assembly, the hegemony of free traders, and even the isolated monks of Zerion sent representatives to meet with human diplomats. But the Skarn response was swift and brutal. They attacked the homeworld of the Altarian Collective with planet-killing weapons, turning the beautiful world into a lifeless rock. The message was clear. Any species that helped humanity would face total destruction. "They're trying to scare our new allies away," Admiral Jae-sung said during an emergency meeting of human military leadership. We need to show the galaxy that we can protect the people who stand with us. The decision was made to strike directly at the heart of Skarn territory. If humanity could prove that even the Skarn homeworld was not safe from retaliation, other species would know that the balance of power in the galaxy had truly shifted. Admiral Tai Wan was given command of humanity's largest fleet ever assembled. 96 human ships supported by vessels from 12 different allied species, prepared for the final assault on Skarn Prime. "This is it," he told his captains during the final briefing. "We end this war by showing the galaxy that no one can murder innocents and escape justice. The Skarn wanted to rule through fear. Let's show them what real fear looks like." The combined fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with it the hopes of every species that had suffered under Skarn oppression. The fire that had started at Kepler Station was about to reach the very heart of the enemy empire. The combined fleet of humanity and its allies emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Skarn home system, and what they saw there took their breath away. Skarn Prime was not just a planet, but an entire solar system converted into a fortress. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the homeworld, each one armed with enough weapons to destroy a fleet. Fleet Admiral Jae Sung, now commanding from the supercarrier New Seoul, studied the tactical displays with his senior staff. Around him, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled waited for orders. 96 human ships, 30 Altarian vessels, and volunteers from 15 other species that had suffered under Skarn oppression. "Sir," Captain Dongwu reported from his position at the sensor station, "we're detecting over 400 Skarn vessels in defensive positions around the planet. This is their entire remaining fleet." Admiral Na Young, commanding the experimental battleship Dokdo's Fury, opened a communication channel. "Sir, my ship's crystal arrays are detecting something else. There are life signs on the orbital platforms. They're using prisoners as human shields." Jae Sung felt his heart sink. Even facing total defeat, the Skarn were still using the tactics that had made them hated across the galaxy. "Can you identify the species?" "Villani, sir, and others. It looks like they've gathered prisoners from every species they've enslaved over the centuries." This was exactly what Jae Sung had feared. The Skarn knew they were about to lose, so they were preparing to commit one final act of genocide, to spite their enemies. "Open a channel to the Skarn High Command," he ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of what looked like a massive throne room. Dozens of Skarn leaders stood around a central platform where the largest reptilian creature anyone had ever seen waited. This was Supreme Overlord Krexgorth, ruler of the Skarn hegemony for over a century. "So the hairless mammals have finally come to face their superiors," Krexgorth said, in a voice like grinding stone. "You have caused us some inconvenience, but now you will learn why the Skarn rule this galaxy." "Your rule is over," Jae Sung replied calmly. "Surrender now, release all prisoners, and submit to trial for war crimes. Do this and we will allow your people to live." The massive Skarn leader laughed, a sound that made even experienced soldiers shiver. "We do not surrender to food animals. Instead, let us show you what happens to species that dare to challenge us." The screen changed to show the interior of one of the orbital platforms. Admiral Na Young watched in horror as she recognized the figure chained to a torture device in the center of the room. It was Thalcine, the ancient Villani elder who had helped humanity discover the crystal weapon technology. Despite everything he had suffered, his crystal formation still glowed with inner light. "This creature gave you the tools to fight us." Krexgorth's voice continued over the transmission. "Watch as we show our appreciation for his gift. What happened next would be remembered by every human who witnessed it." The Skarn torturers began their work, trying to break the old Villani's spirit before they killed him. But Thalcine, even in agony, began to sing. It was the ancient Villani death song, a melody that every crystal-based life form learned in childhood. As his voice carried across the communication channels, something extraordinary happened. Every piece of Villani technology in the human fleet began to resonate with his song, glowing brighter and brighter. "He's telling us something," Dr. Hai Jin said from her position on the medical ship. She had learned enough of the Villani language to understand parts of the crystal song. "He's saying, forgive them not. The innocent must be protected. The evil must be stopped." Thalcine's song ended when his torturers finally silenced him forever. The communication channel went dead, leaving the human fleet in stunned silence. Admiral Jae-sung felt something break inside his chest. This gentle, wise being who had helped save humanity had died calling for justice, not revenge. But at this moment, the difference between the two seemed very small. "All ships," he broadcast to the entire fleet. "The Skarn have just murdered the last of the Villani elders. They have shown that they would rather kill innocents than face judgment for their crimes. There will be no mercy. There will be no quarter. We end this today." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships, powered by crystal technology that seemed to burn with righteous fury, tore through the Skarn defenses like fire through dry grass. Admiral Nae-young's Docto's Fury led the assault, its experimental weapons turning entire orbital platforms into clouds of glowing vapor. Captain Yoon-young, now commanding a full battle squadron, used new phase tactics to appear directly inside the Skarn fleet formation. "For Thalcine," she whispered as her ships opened fire at point-blank range. The Skarn defenders fought with desperate courage, knowing that defeat meant the end of their empire. But their weapons, designed to intimidate through brute force, could not match the precision and fury of human crystal technology enhanced by pure determination. Commander Seok Ho led his fighters in strafing runs against the Skarn homeworld itself, targeting military installations and government buildings. As he watched the planet's surface burn beneath his wings, he thought about all the innocent beings who had died because of Skarn cruelty. The final moment came when the Skarn flagship, a massive fortress ship that served as Krexgorth's mobile palace, tried to escape the system. Commander Jin Woo, his own ship badly damaged from the fighting, made a decision that would be remembered forever. "All remaining ships, concentrate fire on the flagship," he ordered. "We don't let their leaders escape to start this war again somewhere else." The combined firepower of 30 human vessels struck the Skarn flagship simultaneously. The ship, which had survived hundreds of battles and destroyed countless worlds, simply vaporized in a flash of crystal fire that could be seen from the other side of the solar system. When the light faded, the war was over. The remaining Skarn vessels surrendered within hours. Their empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, crumbled as subjugated worlds rose up in rebellion. The species that the Skarn had enslaved were finally free. But victory came at a terrible cost. Nearly half of the human fleet had been destroyed in the final battle. Thousands of good people who had fought to protect the innocent would never see their homes again. 2 years later, Dr. Hai Jin walked through the rebuilt memorial gardens of Kepler Station. The new colony was a joint project of humanity and the dozen species that had been freed from Skarn slavery. Human children played alongside young aliens from across the galaxy, learning from each other just as their predecessors had before the war. At the center of the garden stood a crystal monument created by the few surviving Villani. It sang constantly with a gentle melody that somehow made everyone who heard it feel peaceful. Carved into its base were the names of every being who had died at Kepler Station, both human and Villani. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked Admiral Bora, who had come to attend the memorial ceremony. Bora, now serving as humanity's first Galactic Defense Coordinator, looked at the children playing together in the garden. "We protected the innocent and stopped the ones who hurt them. Thalcine told us that was what mattered." The memorial ceremony began with representatives from over 50 species. They had come not just to remember the victims of the war, but to sign the Kepler Accords, a new treaty that established humanity as the protector of peaceful species throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Veltarash of the Altarian Collective spoke first. "Before this war, the galaxy was ruled by fear. Those with the strongest weapons took what they wanted from those who could not fight back. Today we establish a new principle. Those who protect the weak shall lead, and those who prey on the innocent shall face justice." When it was her turn to speak, Admiral Bora looked out at the assembled representatives and thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The massacre at Kepler Station, the desperate battles across the galaxy, and the final confrontation at Skarn Prime. "We did not seek this war," she said simply. "We did not want to become warriors. But when our friends were murdered and the galaxy turned away, we learned that sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be willing to fight for it." She gestured toward the crystal monument, which continued its gentle song. "The Villani taught us that all life is precious and should be protected. The Skarn taught us that evil must be stopped before it can spread. Both lessons were necessary, As the ceremony continued, children from dozens of different species played together in the gardens, their laughter mixing with the crystal song. They were growing up in a galaxy where friendship was valued over conquest, where diversity was celebrated instead of feared. The war was over. The innocent were protected. And among the stars, the fire of justice burned steady and bright, a warning to anyone who might think that cruelty and murder would go unpunished. Humanity had brought fire to the stars, but they had also brought something more important: hope.